Let's imagine a world without policies and procedures. I know, it sounds like a nightmare of risk and unknowns. In this scenario, think of which policy might be useful to help the volunteer and/or your program to resolve the situation. Let's get started. Gheta has applied to volunteer with your program, and in the interview process, she discloses that she has a disability. You select Gheta for the role because she meets all of your requirements, but when she starts volunteering, she's having trouble meeting deadlines and fulfilling the duties of the role. You decide that she's not a good fit and dismiss her. What policy would have helped Gheta succeed and informed your practice in this situation? Option A. Volunteer Code of Conduct for Gheta to know what behavior is acceptable. Option B. Accessibility policy to determine accommodation requirements. Option C. Screening policy to ensure that every possible question is asked before recruiting. That's right, an accessibility policy would have determined the steps for you to take in accommodating Gheta's disability that she identified in the interview. Additionally, it will help Gheta understand to what extent you would be able to accommodate her needs. You'll learn more about this policy in Lesson 2. Click here to continue. Andrei has applied to a new role with your organization and has been invited to the interview. After several questions, many of which don't seem to be related to the role, Andrei was asked to send 4 references by email by the end of the day. Each reference had its own requirement, such as previous employer, previous volunteer manager, distant family member, and friend. Additionally, Andrei was asked to write an essay about why they'd be a good fit, which was due within a couple days. They decided to drop out of the process. What policy would have made the process easier and more straightforward for Andrei? Option A. Recruitment policy to determine your position description posting process. Option B. Personal information policy to ensure you don't ask for too much information. Option C. Screening policy to lay out the relevant requests for each selection process. That's correct. You need a screening policy to make sure that your requests line up with the risk factors related to the role. If Andrei was applying to a role with low risk and little proof of skills needed, you may only need to ask for 1 reference. Screening policies make sure that the selection process isn't unnecessarily onerous for you or your volunteers. You'll learn more about this policy in Lesson 3. Click here to continue. Viola is a long-serving volunteer who has decided that the recent changes to hours reporting, incident logging, and supervision check-ins doesn't work with her method of volunteering with your organization. She hasn't voiced any concerns, but has decided to not follow any of the new rules, setting a bad example for other volunteers and confusing clients. One day, you ask Viola to leave and never return to volunteer with you. She does so, but she stays in contact with the other volunteers and tries to convince all of them to quit. What policy would have made this process easier for you and Viola? Option A. Feedback and evaluation policy to ensure volunteers can voice their opinions. Option B. Dismissal policy to formalize the performance management and dismissal process. Option C. Supervision policy to ensure supervisors have skills to handle issues. That's right, a dismissal policy will be the best tool to formalize the process. You often want to include warnings and formal conversations before dismissing a volunteer, but the policy can also include behavior or actions that would lead to immediate dismissal. Either way, there can be practices in place to ensure everything goes smoothly. You'll learn more about this policy in Lesson 4. Click here to continue.